What is going on, traders? In this video, I basically want to do a little follow-up video on the right way of how you can actually trade the Silver Bullet strategy. So a lot of controversy was actually popping up in my previous video. If you haven't watched that, I do encourage you to watch it, where I basically traded. I went to watch some guru's explanation on the Silver Bullet strategy, which I knew was completely false. They basically claim that you can trade the Silver Bullet strategy on Forex and whatever. The time zones for the Silver Bullet strategy being from 10 a.m. till 11 a.m. For Forex, they just don't work. The volatility dies there. It is literally not within a kill zone. The kill zone for futures and for Forex are completely different. So what I'm going to do in this video is actually show the right way of how the Silver Bullet strategy works. And I'm going to quote ICT word for word on what he does. And I do encourage you to also, if you want to trade this and if you want to learn more about this, because this video is not going to represent whether it works or not, I'm just going to do some back tests. If you want to trade this yourself, then actually go to the source of the strategy. So don't be looking at gurus who simplify this. Go to the actual source and do your due diligence and test it yourself. So listen to what ICT says and then check if you resonate with it or if you don't. So what I'm going to do right here, I am now on the S&P 500 and I'm going to try and trade the Silver Bullet strategy. Let's quickly cover what exactly the Silver Bullet strategy is again. So basically what ICT says is you have two windows. You have two times. You have two times. You're going to trade between 10 and 11 a.m. And between 10 and 11 a.m. what you're going to do is you're going to look for a really obvious pool of liquidity, being, for example, relative equal highs that's left untouched. And then you're going to look for that to be swept. And then you're going to try and catch a move of 5 handles. So do you already hear how it's 5 handles? So how could this apply to Forex? It's going to be 5 handles that you're going to try and target. You're not going to try and target anything more than that. What you're basically going to do is you're going to wait for that liquidity to be taken out, which we see right here. And then you're going to try and capture a fair value gap and take a trade from there that's worth 5 handles. So that's what we're basically going to be doing here. As additional confluences, what I will be adding is our premium and discount. So I'll be looking to take shorts in a premium within the leg that we already have. And I will be looking to take shorts, longs, from a discounted zone, so below that 50% from the leg. And that would be for longs, of course. As an additional confluence, we're not going to be waiting for a market structure shift because likely if we have that, then our 5 handles are already going to be gone. So what I will be doing is I want to see a really strong V-shaped recovery. And these are just made up confluences. I, of course, am an experienced trader. I do my own teachings in my community. If you're interested in that, links will be in the description. But basically a strong V-shaped recovery means that, let's say we have these relative equal highs. We approach it with quite a bit of speed. Then I also want to see a really quick move down. What I don't want to see is something like this happening, right? Price really slowly going down with a bunch of candles. I want to see a few candles that actually indicate that price is willing to reverse really aggressively. And let's actually get into this. I am going to do this live with you within FX Replay. There is no way of cheating. I don't know what the result is going to be yet. So we will see. And again, if this works or fails, that doesn't mean that the strategy is working or failing. I just wanted to show you guys what the actual proper way of trading this actually is. And that's what we're going to be doing in this video here. So let's hop over to the first 15 minutes to actually approach our 10 a.m. session. And I will only be showing you the entries that I take or don't take. And we'll be giving commentary on only the relevant parts right here, just so that this video doesn't take too long. I'm going to be aiming for around 10 to 20 trades, perhaps cover 1 full month, and then we will see the results after the video. So stick around for a thorough analysis and then my personal opinion on the strategy, which you will receive by the end of the video. All right, so as we can see, we are now approaching that 10 a.m. mark that we have. So now we're going to basically wait for liquidity to be taken. If I'm looking, the obvious pools of liquidity that I see is right here for the New York high. And then I also see that Asian session low that we have there, plus potentially the New York low. So let's wait for something clear to be taken out and then we can potentially take an entry. Right, so as we can see, we now actually took out that Asian low right here, which is clear liquidity. And I would, if I go to a higher time frame, because a lot of people in the comments were actually complaining that if I were to go to that I was just looking at the lower time frame and that it didn't make sense. So here is the higher time frame. As we can see, we just took out that Asian low right here. I'm looking at the 1 minute, and now what I would like to see is a strong move up that basically violates this, and then a fair value gap that I could potentially enter from. And I will be looking for a potential entry till 11, which is right here. So after this time, I will not be looking for entries anymore. So let's wait. All right, so as we can see, we now have this move right here. But what I do see and what I mentioned is that we do not have that really strong V-shaped recovery right here. What we do is we basically take that liquidity, but really like range around a bit here, which is not really indicating to me that this is a strong push up. So right now I'm not going to touch it, and let's actually see what happens. If we would have taken a long here, we wouldn't have gotten filled, and if we were getting filled, we could be filled right now, and then we would have been stopped out. So there is no trade on the 1st of March, at least not one that I am clearly seeing. So let's move on to the next day. Right, so we're approaching 10 a.m. and as for a untouched pool of liquidity, I would say that we do have the New York high and again the New York low right here. The New York low being a much stronger point of liquidity, because as we can see, we have these relative equal lows, or what some people would call trend line liquidity, resting below here. So this would be a stronger point where price will probably magnetize towards. What we can also see is a pretty clear accumulation play. So right here we are accumulating liquidity. There was liquidity resting here and then below here, and right now we push to the upside. So what I am expecting is that either we are satisfied with this liquidity and start reversing, or we go for this and then start reversing. So I'm now going to be waiting for 10 a.m. to hit, and then I would be looking for a strong V-shaped recovery, which we can take an entry from, or I would wait for this liquidity up here to be violated. All right, so as we can see, we did sweep this liquidity, but it is not 10 a.m. just yet, so I'm not going to be entering since it would not be allowed with the strategy. And it's good that I didn't enter because we continue up higher. It seems like we're going for that top side liquidity. Now we're waiting for price to strongly react to it, which we do. I would say that we had a little pullback here as well. This would be a V-shaped recovery. So I will be taking an entry off of this fair value gap short, and I will be targeting 5 handles. And 5 handles is basically on this ticker going to be 500 points, which is right here, which would provide us with a 1 to 1.2 R trade. So let's place our order and see what happens. It seems like we take a win right here. So that is a nice first winner for 1.2 R. That's great. We can only take 1 trade a day with this strategy. So let's actually move on to the next day right here. And just like ICT says, yes, you can target more, but this is not going to be the purpose of this strategy. With this strategy, you're going to purely be focusing on taking those 5 handles and getting out of the market. You're either getting stopped out or you're walking away with 5 handles. It's as simple as that. All right, so we are once again approaching 10 a.m. And if we look at untouched pools of liquidity, right now it would be this week high right here, which is also the New York high. And then a stronger point would be the New York low, because we do have relative equal lows down here. So this could potentially be our magnet, and this could potentially be our run on liquidity. Let's see if we can get a sweep between now and 10, and then enter actually between 10 and 11. Right, so we have that sweep right here, but as we can see, it is not yet 10 a.m. Now it is 10 a.m. and it seems like we are getting a strong V-shaped recovery. We have a fair value gap, so we can actually qualify an entry here. We will cover the high of this previous candle, and then again target 5 handles. There we go. Let's place that order. It's going to be a 1-to-1 here. Let's see what we get here. Price seems to be running down without us. And again, like I mentioned, I will be using a premium and discount overlay on this. So as you can see, I only want to be filled if we do have an entry in that premium zone for shorts. Right, so no entries there because the first pool of liquidity that we were targeting right here, and we already swept that. So now we can actually start looking to possibly enter off of this. So we now do get quite a strong V-shaped recovery after sweeping that liquidity. So I will be placing an order here, putting my stop right there, and then again target those 5 handles right here. And again, people might be bashing me like, yeah, and this is not strong liquidity. To me, this is quite strong liquidity because as we can see, we had a decent break of structure right here. Our overall structure is quite bullish, and for us to be taking this out in an overall discounted zone, right? That would be an interesting entry for me. That would be something that I would be looking at with my own models and my own strategy. So let's see what happens here. We get filled right away, and then we shoot up to that 5 handle mark that we initially set. So we are now up 2.3%, which is really nice. So far we have a 100% win rate, which is really cool. Let's move on to the next day. All right, so again, approaching that 10 a.m. mark is the dashed line, the dotted line. And if we are looking at untouched pools of liquidity, we just swept major liquidity from the Asian session right here, which we already reacted to initially right here. Then we seem to reverse and sweep even more liquidity from that New York high. And what we can see right here now is that we swept even more liquidity right here. So these relative equal lows, let me mark them out. So this low right here, having micro equal lows right there, and then all of this liquidity that's resting right here on this low that also got swept right here. So when it comes to strong liquidity being swept, I would probably say let's wait for this to be swept, because again, we are overall quite bullish. Price seems like it's willing to push up. This right here seemed like a sweep. But what we got left with are these relative equal lows. So if this macro is indeed going to be playing out, I would think that it's going to be targeting this for us to then potentially move on up higher. Let's see if we can get a fill here. So it seems like price is just shooting up. To me, that is not a decent level of liquidity to be taking a short from, because again, we are in quite a premium zone, but overall price flow is quite bullish. So let's actually wait from something on the short end to be taken out before 11. And if we don't get that, then we don't have a trade, unfortunately. And we hit 11 a.m. And to me, and of course, some people will argue that there was somewhere liquidity that was swept, but I don't see any decent liquidity being swept near that 10 a.m. mark. So there is no entry for me on this day. So let's move on to the next one. Right, so if we take a look, we are approaching that 11 a.m. mark. And what I noticed is that there was news on this day, as we can see. So right here at 10 a.m., we immediately shut on down and there was no real clear entry here. So I'm skipping this day, the 7th of March. And I'm going to go to the next day. Right, so again, approaching that 10 a.m. mark is the dotted line here. And as we can see, we are really pushing up to the upside. So on the higher time frame, we could be thinking that we are displacing towards these highs or these highs potentially. But right here, let's look on the 1 minute for a run on liquidity for us to then target those 5 handles. So since we are displacing upwards and we had this nice little candle pushing down, we are now going to be looking for a V-shaped recovery. And this sweep of liquidity would be enough given the momentum to the upside that we currently have. Seems like we are actually pushing down for more liquidity, which is a good thing. We didn't quite take anything there yet. We did take this, but we didn't really have, we did take this, but we didn't really have a strong reaction after sweeping that. We actually displaced below, showing me that it might have gone for this low, which it didn't. So really nothing clear for me just yet right here. We're now approaching 11 a.m. so I doubt that there will be an entry for us still. Okay, so it is past 11, no trades on this day for me. So a setup every day, I would be taking that with a grain of salt. If you would have taken a setup here, it would have probably been a loss. So an entry every day so far, I am not really convinced of that just yet. Again, we are approaching 10 a.m. and as we can see, we just took out that London low right here and we had a really strong V-shaped recovery. Unfortunately, we cannot enter yet. I would have been really happy with a long right here out of this FVG for us to ride up 5 handles, but that's not the strategy. We have to wait till after 10. So let's see. Okay, so now it is 10. So now we have to wait for a new sweep of liquidity. We did build up these relative equal lows right here. Seems like we're taking that. Let's see if we have a strong reaction. That doesn't really qualify as a strong reaction. Plus we don't have an FEG right here. Not really sweeping anything right now. Now we do take this right here, but no strong V-shaped recovery to the downside, indicating that price wants to go lower. So in this case, no trades for me. Again, so this is, I think, the 4th, or might actually be like the 6th day in a row without a trade. Is not bad per se. I'm just saying that a setup every day, I would again take that with a grain of salt, because that's clearly not what I am seeing here right now. All right, so again, approaching that 10 a.m. mark. If we look at price seems to be heading for liquidity on the downside. Let's actually hop to a higher time frame to see what's happening. Today was a clear continuation day. So what happened here is have Asia that was swept by London and then a continuation down, plus New York swept a little bit of liquidity here, filled up some imbalance. Let me actually remove all these drawings. So we filled up this imbalance, stepped into that, moved down. So what I am expecting for our 10 a.m. session is to actually sweep some liquidity right here for us to then continue lower. So that's what we will be looking for. What we could also do is play the pullback. So we have relative equal lows right here. If they stay intact till 10 a.m., we could potentially wait for us to take this out. So first have something like this, then take this out, and then take our 5 handle play to the upside right here. Or we could see this go and then take a trade to the downside. That's going to be the game plan for now. Let's see what we actually get here. Right, it's 10 a.m. now, and it seems like we are taking out this liquidity. Good, we also tapped into a fair value gap right here. So let's wait for that strong reaction. We do get it, but no FEG. That's why I'm not entering. All right, so it seems like price really wants to go up for some more liquidity. So if we look at a clear side of liquidity, that's going to be that New York high right there. So what we could do, as we can see, we quickly swept this low and then our displacement upwards, a really strong V-shaped recovery. So the play here is actually going to be something in this sense. We are going to target our 5 handles, and unfortunately that's, given the momentum, that's really not going to be a lot. It's not going to be too interesting of a trade. So what I will do here is I will basically cover that fair value gap and then target this momentum. I will be looking to target, let's say 10 handles right here. Right, so let's see what happens. We get filled and we get stopped out. So that's going to be our first loss right here. It's perfectly fine. Move on to the next day. Right, so we are approaching 10 a.m. again. What I see is that we just took out a bunch of liquidity right here, and we start to actually show that the market wants to continue lower. Not 10 a.m. yet, plus there aren't any FEGs to take an entry from. So let's wait, see what happens. All right, so now we actually might have missed an entry here. So we could have entered off of this fair value gap. But once again, I want to be looking at my premium and discount zone. So that would have not been a valid entry anyway. Within this leg, we do not have a valid fair value gap that is discounted or premium. So let's actually wait for another sweep of liquidity. Price action is really choppy right now. I'm looking at clear pools of liquidity. It's going to be the high right here, which is a weak high, I think, or no, it's a strong high. I'm sorry, because it's swept liquidity. And then right here is our weak low. So what I would love to see is for us to take liquidity here, perhaps have a strong reaction to this liquidity and then take an entry. But I just noticed that it is past 11, so no trades once again. Right, so we're almost entering into that 10 a.m. session again. What I'm looking at right now is we have a really strong high right here that just swept liquidity. Our overall market structure is quite bearish on the 1 minute here. If we go to a higher time frame, we can see that we have another nice continuation day, meaning that Asian was higher than London, and then the New York session is lower than London again. On the hourly, we can also see that we are tapping into an OTE fair value gap right here. So this is indicating that we probably are going to be looking for a short setup here. So what I do see is that we are now tapping into that fair value gap and also sweeping these relative equal highs right here. So if we see a strong V-shaped reaction to the downside, I would be interested in taking a potential short here. So we do get one, but no fair value gap so far. Now we have one. And if we take our FIB tool here, it would actually be, this fair value gap would actually be in a discounted zone. The top side of it, we're going to do is we're going to take a trade that looks something like this. And for our target, I am going to be targeting those 5 handles, just like this. Let's actually place that trade short and let's see what happens. No fill just yet. We get filled and we get stopped out, unfortunately. So again, if we look at that displacement leg down right here, we do see that this was above the 50% level. So it was a valid entry. Our stop loss placement was kind of valid as well. We cannot make it too wide since we're only targeting 5 handles. So making the stop loss something like this would not be lucrative in the long run, risk management wise. So this was unfortunately a loss, and we are now almost back at break even. Again, almost a 10 a.m. session. We just took out liquidity right here. Overall, pretty bearish. So I would think that we're going to have a continuation lower. Our target for sell side liquidity will be the New York low right here. So let's see if we can find an entry here. All right, so we take out liquidity once again. We now do have intent to go lower. We have that strong V-shaped recovery. I'm going to be placing a trade right here, covering the previous candle's high. And for the target, we are going to target those 5 handles again and see if we can actually catch a trade to the downside here. Really strong confluences. We have a nice price gap right here. And we have relative equal lows on the down end right here, which would be our sell side liquidity. So overall, this is a pretty high probability trade setup. Let's place that trade, see what happens. So it seems like it ran without us, and there was no fair value gap entry right here at all. Let's actually close that. What we did now is we took out that sell side liquidity. We filled up the imbalance. Let's see if we can actually get a reaction up. Okay, so the overall game plan was pretty accurate, but there was just no way of catching a trade in this. Now we did take out the sell side liquidity. And if we go look at the 15-minute, we probably have quite a bit of imbalance left, as you can see. So price is going to have to rebalance or is going to leave a fair value gap. So let's see if we can actually catch a trade to the upside here for 5 handles. All right, so now it is just before 11, so we can actually take this entry. So we're going to take a stab long here, cover this low because we are showing intent to move higher. And let's target those 5 handles here. Let's place the order. And it seems like we get stopped out. On to the next trade. All right, if we take a look right here, we have a pretty bullish price flow. As we can see, the power of 3 is kind of playing out. Asia being our ranging session, then London actually being our manipulation. A really nice fractal PO3 here as well. As you can see, we accumulate, we manipulate, and then distribute. And now it actually seems we are accumulating again. So we just took out these relative equal highs, and we are now reacting to that. So what I suspect is that this might actually be a potential target, this sell side liquidity. Or what we will do is fill up some of this imbalance and then rally up. So let's see if we can find something that suits our game plan. So indeed, we tapped into that imbalance and moved up now. Let's wait for a reaction to liquidity being taken. All right, so now again, we took out this liquidity. We could say that these are still relative equal highs. We took that out. We had a really strong V-shaped reaction. So let's now try and take an entry from an FEG in a premium zone, which is going to be this one. I won't take this one because my stop would have to be too wide, or actually do something like this. Let's cover this FEG and let's target these lows right here for 5 handles, something like that. And let's see if this works out. All right, so we take another winner, which is really nice. So now we are again back at around break even. Right, again, almost 10 a.m. We are a really bullish day. So a continuation day again. Asia is the lowest, then London, and then New York. So the most logical thing to do is to go to the higher time frame to see what we are actually targeting. And it could be that we are rebalancing this imbalance or the left, or that we are going up to this buy side liquidity that we left right here. So what we will do is we'll look for potential entries long, or if we really have clear induced liquidity on the buy side, we might look for shorts. But right now, this would be my sell side liquidity. I would be looking for that to be taken out to actually take a step long. All right, so we do take out some of that trend line liquidity here. Let's now wait for a strong V-shaped recovery that we can actually take a trade from. All right, so we do get that. So what we're going to do is we're going to place a trade right here long. We're going to cover this low right here. And as for our target is going to be that 5 handles, something like that. Let's place the trade for 1% risk and let's see what happens. We actually get stopped out and we are starting to move lower, really going for all of that sell side liquidity below. Again, we can only take 1 trade per day and we just took a big loss. So that's unfortunate. On to the next day. All right, so a really bullish day. And if we take a look, we actually had a nice PO3 play here. So we had our accumulation during London. Then we had, during the London lunch, we had this massive manipulation leg for us to then distribute here. And if we look, we also have a fractal one. So here's our accumulation. We then manipulate and then distribute to the upside. So what I'm thinking is that we are targeting some higher liquidity, or we are filling up this imbalance right here. So let's see what happens. I will be probably looking for longs. So I would love to see some sell side being taken for me to then take a long. As we can see, no trades again. So let's move on to the next day. All right, so it is 10 a.m. As we can see, again, a really nice power of 3 play on this day. We go to the higher time frame and we look for targets. Might be that the market is satisfied with taking this sell side out of the market right here, and that we are now going to go higher, potentially rebalance this FEG right here. So if we take a look at this displacement leg, which did sweep liquidity, we could take an entry down in this fair value gap right here. So let's actually mark it out and see if the market wants to come back to that. If not, we're going to wait for some liquidity to be induced, taken out, and then taken in. All right, so we just swept liquidity here. And as we know, price is going to have to pull back a little bit before it's going to be fueling up. So right now, we're going to be looking for an FEG to target right here on the down end. And as we can see, our FEG down here is around OTE, and this FEG right here is around equilibrium. So that's a really nice target. So let's set an entry at this candle. Let's actually cover a bit above that imbalance. And let's target our 5 handles, which is going to be that fair value gap right there. There we go. Place the order. And as we can see, we have a nice little winner right here. So immediately went into that fair value gap and then moved down to the fair value gap around equilibrium right here. Really clean play, and we are now actually up $500 overall these days. So as we can see, we are approaching 10 a.m. again. We just took out relative equal highs, so I would assume that price is now going to pull back to some fair value gap or takes out some sell side. So if I look, this immediately jumps out as a really nice bit of imbalance that we could potentially target. If we take a look, we are building up some trend line liquidity right here. So let's potentially wait for that to be taken out and take some shorts. All right, so we do form a really big fair value gap that we could potentially take an entry from. So let's do that. We cover the high right here. And as for our target, we are going to go for our 500 points here. So let's place that trade for 1% and let's see what happens. As we can see, we didn't get filled before our 500 handle target was met. We then went for some buy side liquidity, so I decided to actually remove that trade. So let's wait for another potential entry right here. We have buy side resting above here. We have a strong V-shaped recovery right here, so this would be an interesting fair value gap to actually take a trade off of. So let's place an entry right here, cover this high, and then target our 500 handles. Place the order, and again our target gets met without us actually having an entry, so we have to close this again. So we still didn't take a trade for this day. I have to apologize, it seems like I was taking trades before 10 a.m. but this is only 10 a.m. Luckily we didn't get filled, or this would have been an invalid bit of backtesting. As we can see right now, we actually build up some buy side liquidity, and we still have that sell side liquidity and that fair value gap to target down here. So my bias is still going to be short. We now actually tap into that fair value gap and have a strong reaction off of that. So we could be looking for our 500 handle somewhere over here. So let's do that, place the order. And it seems like we just managed to take our profits. So another winning trade, which is quite great. So let's go to the next day right here. All right, so we are approaching 10 a.m. once again. As we can see, there is some buy side resting right here. We have an overall bearish day with another nice power of 3 play. So we have accumulation here. We then manipulate, then it seems to distribute down. So now I'm basically going to be waiting for either the buy side to be taken out or the sell side, and then look for a sell side reversal or a buy side attack for us to then target the sell side liquidity, because we are overall quite bearish, right? All right, so it seems like we take out that buy side liquidity, which I anticipated. Now we don't have a fair value gap yet. We form one, so let's take a short from that, cover the high from that candle before the fair value gap, and then actually go ahead and target our 500 handles here, 5 handles, I'm sorry, for 1%, of course. As we can see, 10 a.m. was right here, so this is a valid entry. We get filled and we actually take profits. So that's a really clean trade again. We are now up around 3%, and we are almost approaching the end of the month here. Again, a really bullish day. It's almost 10 a.m. I see. If we take a look, we have some sell side here. Now we could wait for us to take out, or we could wait for us to actually rebalance some price here. This is the 5 minute. Come to the 1 minute and see. Yep, there is also imbalance right there. And I would be taking trades long from that point, or wait for a inducement of liquidity on the buy side for us to take out and then pull back. Right, so we did take out buy side liquidity here, and it seems like we have intent to actually move lower. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a trade short here. I'm going to target the 500 handles. That's basically towards equilibrium of this leg. So this is a pretty interesting position to actually enter off of. And it seems like this trade played out as well. So that's really nice. Let's actually go to the next day. All right, approaching that 10 a.m. mark here, skip a little bit further ahead. What we can see is that we have yet another really bullish day. We have sell side resting here. We have buy side resting right here. So let's see if we can get a reaction to either of these. All right, so a really strong reaction to that buy side being swept. So what we could do is take a short here and cover that high and target our 5 handles here. All right, so let's actually enter this position right here, or at least place the order, and let's see if we get filled. We do not get filled. Now it seems like we actually swept the sell side. Since we are so bullish, we could actually be looking for a 5 handle capture right here. So as you can see, we swept this sell side liquidity. Let's see if we have a strong V-shaped recovery. We do not. We even take more sell side. And now we do have that really strong reaction to taking out that sell side. If we go look at the 15-minute right here, we do fill up some imbalance and react to that. So this would be a nice indication that we could potentially start going long. What I'm going to do without analyzing it too much, I'm going to be taking a long position. I'm going to be covering this low, and I'm going to be targeting our 5 handles right here. There we go. Let's actually place that order, and let's see if we get filled. We do not get filled, but again, the trade ID did play out, so the analysis was spot on. And as we can see, unfortunately, there were no trades before 11 anymore. perfectly fine. And let's move on to the next day, which is going to be our final day of backtesting. Then we did a full month. I was hoping to get those 20 trades in, but unfortunately we didn't get a setup every single day, which is not bad because I do assume that you can actually make a living out of trading without taking a trade every single day. At least that's how I make a living as well. I don't take a trade every single day, but I do make a decent amount of money. All right, so for our final day, let's actually put in a big amount of effort. Let's see, where is our 10 a.m.? It's right here. Are really close to approaching that. And as we can see, again, we have a really bullish day. Again, the power of 3 playing out. So the Asian session being swept by London for us to then distribute during New York. We don't really have a clear target in mind. So if we go about ICT's teachings, if we are bullish, we don't have a clear target in mind, it's best to just stay bullish and follow market structure. So what we're going to do is we're going to be waiting for some sell side liquidity to actually be taken out. And once we take that out, we can then look for an entry long. So it seems like we are accumulating right here, which is good. We could take a potential long entry off of the sweep of all of this liquidity that's resting here. But it seems like it didn't want us to have an entry. We are already past 11. And as you can see, really choppy price action and no real entry for us. And that will conclude our backtesting. So let's actually go to the statistics of this whole month of trading, the Silver Bullet strategy. All right, so as we can see in the analytics, we did have an initial 2 wins. We then went into drawdown a little bit. Then we stuck around break even, only for us to start really making money towards the end of the month right here. So we had a few consecutive winners, which is really nice. This right here was that break even trade that got filled and that I immediately exited because I noticed that our target actually got smashed. As for the win rate, it is 70%. So this is more realistic, right? Especially with a 1-to-1 risk to reward. As you can see, this strategy does have potential in the futures markets. It just doesn't have potential in the Forex markets, which is what I wanted to make clear in the previous video on Forex, right? So if you want my 2 cents on the strategy, I wouldn't say that it's a good or a bad strategy. It's just not something that really resonates with me because as you can see, sometimes you will have to take profits really early with those 5 handles. Some of those trades I would have loved to let run a little further, especially with my trading. And I must say that I have a similar kind of win rate, but of course I do target quite a lot more. So instead of me targeting like we did here 1.5 or 1 R, sometimes even negative R, I do tend to try to aim between 1.3, 1 to 3 R or 1 to 6 R for the least, and I do tend to get the same win rate. If that's something you're really interested in, if that's something you want to be able to do and you want to know how I trade, I do have an elite membership, which is basically going to be a place where you have a course that you can learn, you can ask questions about the course, and throughout the whole process, as long as you are an elite member, you will be able to actually drop all of your trades in a channel where your trades will be reviewed, where you'll be given feedback and so much more. You have a lot of like-minded traders in there that actually trade the same way and are finding a lot of success with that. If you're interested but not convinced yet, I do recommend you to join our free Discord server. In our free Discord server, you will also find a lot of testimonials. You'll see a lot of like-minded traders. And I think in the free Discord server, you will already find a bunch of value as I do drop most of my trades that I take in that free Discord server as well. I just won't be able to really follow you up and review your trades because in the free Discord server that is really growing, I just don't have the ability to do so. Hence the elite membership. So if that's something you're actually looking for, if you are looking to actually become a professional and really sharpen your edge and perhaps look at going into trading full time and really learn how to look at the markets, I do recommend you to check out the elite membership. Links will be in the description to both the free Discord, to my website, and so much more. Other than that, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to show some love in the comment section, perhaps leave a like. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, I do encourage you to actually subscribe. Thank you so much for your time, guys. I will catch you in the next video. Bye-bye.